Good afternoon. Welcome to Magdalen. You've probably been told that already, I hope. But if you haven't, welcome to Magdalen. It's good to see all of you here. And indeed good to be able to see all of you in person, more or less, except for the people who are on the live feed outside. I'm afraid this is the best we could do, given the social distancing. This is a rather strange place to start these talks, I think. But this is how the timetable fell out. I'm Neil Jones. I'm one of the directors of studies in law, and also this term acting dean. The dean is the fellow responsible for student discipline. So you're starting with a talk from the person in charge of discipline. But my colleague, Professor Antje Dubois-Padine, is on sabbatical leave this term doing research. So I'm acting in her place. The JCR president is coming to talk to you at 25 to 3. So I've got about 25 minutes to talk to you about questions concerning consent in the context of the criminal law concerning sexual offences. And this does seem in some senses a strange place to start. It may sound rather negative. It isn't intended to be negative, but it's simply an important topic. And having just a sense of how these things work, not all of which is entirely intuitive, may be helpful for you in your time in Cambridge, both in the university and in the wider world. And I should say that conduct which is a criminal offence is highly likely also to be a form of misconduct, which can be handled either under the college or the university student discipline procedures. So therefore, understanding a little about what the criminal law says is relevant not only in itself, but also conceivably to how we understand the college and university procedures. I should also say that I'm conscious that it's possible that for a few of you, talking about matters of consent in relation to sexual interaction could be distressing. It isn't in all ways an easy subject. If you do find it distressing, please feel free to just quietly to get up and go out. And I mean that seriously. What I'm going to say, and I say this perhaps in particular to the law students who will be dealing with this in the tripos sometime later this academic year, what I'm going to say is clearly only a summary, and a few aspects of it will be a simplification, but that's necessary in order to say anything about it in 25 minutes. It isn't inaccurate or unreliable for being summary or simplified. The law concerning sexual offences received a substantial reform in 2003 with the current statutory rules which are in the Sexual Offences Act 2003. And I should say that of course contains particular material to do with sexual interactions with people under 16. And there's a separate set of rules for that. I don't propose in this context to say anything about people under the age of 16. What I'm going to deal with concerns interactions between adults. I'd like to talk primarily, as I say, about questions of what is meant by consent in this context. Just before I do that, to put this into the framework, it's just worth identifying what the major offences are in this area concerning adults. And there are 4. Rape, sexual assault by penetration, sexual assault, and intentionally engage in sexual activity. The sentences for these offences can be severe. The maximum sentence for rape is life. The maximum sentence for sexual assault by penetration is also life. The maximum sentence for sexual assault is 10 years. Intentionally causing someone to engage in sexual activity, the maximum is life if there is penetration, and is 10 years if there isn't. And penetration means the penetration of someone's vagina or anus with a part of the body or anything else. Now, before moving to consent, could I just emphasize 2 points where we've got to so far? Firstly, both rape and the 2 types of sexual assault are offences which the criminal lawyers call offences of basic intent. Basic intent essentially means that it's not a defence that the accused was drunk at the time. You won't be able to say, didn't know what I was doing, I'd had 2 shots of vodka and 5 pints of beer. That doesn't prevent you having this. And secondly, the category of sexual assault is very wide. It comprises all intentional, unconsented sexual touching. All intentional, unconsented sexual touching. Then, of course, the question is, how do we know whether touching is sexual? And the statute provides that touching is sexual if a reasonable person would consider it sexual. But that's an objective standard, the standard of a reasonable person, rather than the standard of what a particular person was sexual. Touching is sexual if a reasonable person would consider it sexual, either because of its nature, or because of its nature combined with the circumstances in which it takes place. It's possible, therefore, that kissing someone without their consent, touching them through their clothes without their consent, could be the offence of sexual assault, which carries a maximum sentence of 10 years. And I'm not here to frighten you, but nevertheless, things that feel, perhaps at the time, relatively minor and insignificant, could turn out to be relatively serious criminal offences. Okay, I'd like then to think about consent. And we could spend a very long time, I think, talking about the jurisprudence of consent, how we determine whether somebody is consenting. It isn't an easy question. However, in order to convict someone of any of the offences which I've mentioned, the prosecution would have to prove, firstly, that the person complaining did not consent, and secondly, that the defendant, the person accused, did not reasonably believe that the complainant did consent. So the complainant is not consenting, and the accused did not reasonably believe that the complainant was consenting. And that reasonable belief is an objective standard. It's what is reasonable according to us, rather than what is reasonable according to the particular accused. So we're going to need to know whether the complainant was consenting. Before 2003, there was no statutory definition in this context. It was a matter for the case law, what the judges said in the cases. The 2003 Act then tries to provide a definition of consent, but it is a difficult thing, and it doesn't do so entirely successfully, I think. However, what the Act says, firstly, Section 74, I don't think you need to know that it's Section 74, apart from the lawyers who might need to know it, but just as a label, Section 74 of the 2003 Act provides the basic definition of consent. Then we have Section 75 and Section 76, which contain exceptions. It's useful to start with the exceptions first, and then come to the basic definition. Starting with the exceptions, Section 75 there is an irrebuttable presumption, what lawyers call an irrebuttable presumption. That is a conclusive presumption, that is in effect a rule of law. It is a rule of law that there is no consent if there is either intentional deception as to the nature or purpose of the act, or there is intentional inducement of consent by impersonating someone else. If I impersonate someone else in order to obtain consent, then as a matter of law there is no consent. If I intentionally deceive someone as to the nature of what I'm doing, then as a matter of law there is no consent. And so that's an irrebuttable presumption, rule of law. Then we've got section 75. Did I say 75 just now? If I did, I should have said 76. We've now got 75. And in 75, there is a rebuttable presumption. That is an evidential presumption. That is a default position. But the default position can be displaced by evidence to the contrary. So there is a rebuttable presumption of lack of consent, which includes a number of situations, including where there is violence or the threat of violence, where the complainant was asleep or unconscious at the time, and where anyone had administered to the complainant without their consent something capable of causing them to be stupefied or overpowered, spiking someone's drink with a date rape drug. In those cases, violence, the complainant asleep or unconscious, and the administration of an intoxicating drug. In those cases, there is a default presumption of that, and the accused would have to displace that presumption by proof. So those are the exceptional cases. Irrebuttable presumption for violence. Irrebuttable presumption for deception as to the nature of the act and impersonation. Rebuttable presumption for violence and for being asleep or unconscious, and for the substance. Apart from those, to come to the basic definition of consent in section 74, the statute provides a person consents if he or she agrees by choice and has the freedom and capacity to make that choice. Agreeing by choice and having the capacity to make a choice. Those are the two elements we've got. Could I emphasize that there is nothing in the law which provides that the absence of protest or resistance shows consent? Cannot say there was consent because the person who is complaining didn't resist or protest. We then need to look at some elements. We have a free choice by someone with capacity. And if they do all of those, then we've got consent. So, starting with free, is the choice free? This is a matter for the jury, rather than the judge if it comes to trial. Some cases will be clear. Other cases will be more doubtful. Is consent free, for example, if the accused said to the complainant, if you don't have sex with me, I am ending our relationship? Is that a situation in which the complainant can be said to consent to the sex which follows? A jury question. So firstly, free. Secondly, choice. Choice presupposes that the complainant has options to choose from. Yes, no, and has adequate information about the options so as to make an informed choice. There must be some options. So, free, choice, and finally, capacity to make the choice. And in this context, capacity means mental capacity at the relevant time, rather than mental capacity generally. Mental capacity at the relevant time to make the free. Question one might ask here is there capacity to make a choice when the complainant is drunk? And that's another jury question. But it seems clear that the jury is going to have to ask not whether the drunkenness caused the complainant to be less inhibited, but whether the drunkenness deprived the complainant of capacity to consent. And it is conceivable that severe drunkenness might deprive the complainant of capacity to consent. And if the complainant does not have capacity to consent, then sexual interaction which follows will be unconsented and will amount to an offence. But could I then emphasise just a few key points here? Firstly, being voluntarily drunk, and these are things I've already said, being voluntarily drunk is not a defence for these offences. If you're drunk and you do something of this sort, you're not going to be able to say to the court, sorry, I was drunk. And I should add, actually, that under the Magdalen discipline procedure, which follows the university discipline procedure on this, it is not an offence. It is not a defence to be drunk there either. And indeed, the Magdalen and the university discipline procedures provide that misconduct can be considered more serious if it arises while under the influence of alcohol or under the influence. So being drunk isn't a defence. Secondly, the offence of sexual assault is potentially very wide. Kissing someone without their consent, touching them through their clothes without their consent. Thirdly, and I'm just picking out some particular points for emphasis here. Thirdly, the rebuttable presumption of lack of consent where there is some form of administration of a stupefying or overpowering. Spiking someone's drink leads to a default position. Can be rebutted by evidence, but it leads to a default that they do not. Also, the difficult question of when consent is free. What about alleged consent arising from threats to end a relationship? Is that free consent? Consent arising from threats to otherwise disclose explicit photographs on social media. Have sex with me, or I've got your photographs. Is that a context in which there can be consent? And finally, the fact that the complainant is drunk may mean they are unable. Right, that's my potted lecture on the law concerning sexual offences. As I say, it's not intended to frighten you, but I think it's simply sensible for us all to be aware of how the law is. And one hopes, I'm sure is the case with all of you, one hopes that one's conduct is determined not simply by what's going to be a criminal offence. What's going to be a criminal offence is the very bottom line, above which I very much hope we're all building rules of conduct for ourselves, which are more demanding than that. But the very bottom line is the criminal law, and that's the essence. Could I also say a little in relation to what you might do if non-consensual sex or you think it's and Dr. Azarad is coming in a while. He's one of the college's harassment officers, and he will also say something about this, I think, in a bit more detail. But let me just say a little at the bottom. Firstly, of course, if there has been unconsented sexual activity, then, as I say, that is very likely to be capable of being misconduct within the college or the university. And that might be a route down which conduct of this sort could end up being handled. Alternatively, through the police. Secondly, perhaps at a slightly less high level of seriousness, but secondly, there are the college procedures in relation to harassment and some other types of misconduct. And the basic difference between the discipline procedure is that it'll lead to something, eventually to something, whereas the harassment procedure between and the two can cross over with each other. Thirdly, if you feel at any time in Cambridge or indeed elsewhere that you are in immediate danger of some form of sexual misconduct, call 999. If you think the danger isn't immediate, you can contact the police on the 101 non-emergency number. There is also county-wide in Cambridgeshire, and this isn't university, it's yes, but there is something called the Elms Sexual Assault Referral Centre, Elm as in the tree, the Elms Sexual Assault Referral Centre, which is at Hinchingbrook Hospital. And if you can find that on a search engine, and there's information there as to how to get in touch with them. Before doing most of those things, I would suggest the thing to do, that there has been sexual misconduct in college or in university context, would be to talk to your tutor or to Dr. Azarad or Professor Benison, the harassment officers, talk to the chaplain, Sarah Atkins, or to the JCR or University Student Union welfare people. And those types of people will have an idea as to where it might be best to go next, and will be able to listen and give you some advice. I hope none of this is going to be necessary for anyone, and life will be as it should, without any of this being necessary for anyone. So please forgive me for having come down a bit hard with the maximum sentences for these various offences. But as I say, it's something that is important and matters. Good, I think that's it from me on that topic, unless the head porter, who I see is sitting here listening quietly, has something which he wishes to add. But there we go. Right, I have finished. Just slightly early. You have 5 minutes, I think, now to talk among yourselves before the JCR come. Unless there's anything anybody would like to ask, I'll just stand around at the back if you have, or put up a hand now. Or if you want to get in touch, my email address is on the college website. Thank you very much for listening, and enjoy Freshers Week so far as you can. I think you will find that this is an extraordinary whirlwind, but it will calm down, I'm sure. Thank you.
That one? This one, please. Hello everyone. I'm not running late, I'm actually ahead of time. Jessie, our present, is not there. It's quite a bit emotional because the first time I'm actually seeing students in the room 16 months. So it's, because we've been teaching the whole year online. But it's wonderful to welcome you at Magdalene. I'm there really just to be there so that you know who I am. There's also, I've got a counterpart, there's Professor Amira Benison, who is also the harassment officer. Our role is, in college is really official and unofficial. We are supposed to be, we are a friendly face. We are a listening ear. Someone you can come to in all confidence, without fear of bias, knowing that there will be support, and that will be confidential. So we are not a tutor, we're not a senior tutor, we're not the dean, we are not a wonderful porter, but we are fellows of the college. We have been doing this for many years, so we have a good experience of what could happen and what actually normally, rarely, very rarely happens. But why, on the first day in Cambridge, why do we have all those talks about harassment, sexual misconduct, and those good, very crucial things, so heavy things. You'd like to be putting your books, to hear about your lectures, and so on and so forth. It's about us as a community. Because we are going to be together, we're going to be here in this college. We are a close-knit community. Interact, with other colleges at the university as well. But it's important to know that things may happen. They always happen. They may have happened before at school. And it's crucial to know that we have zero tolerance on harassment, sexual misconduct, bullying. Knowing you know us, we are intellectuals. We respect life, we respect each other, and we want to learn about each other. That's what this place is about, the beauty of this place. But if something happens, and they may happen, you can actually turn to either Amira or myself. So I'm the fellow in French, and Amira is the fellow in Arabic studies. So how does it work? You just can email us, really at any time. We work during working days. I do check my emails in the evenings. And we are there in case you don't know what to do with what's going on. This kind of stuff, things happen. You can't really rationalize it. It can be you've been hurt, and you may want to resolve the way you resolve things normally, but that's never easy to say. With the other person, if you've been facts, they want to interact. But if you really don't know what to do, you can turn to us. See, you can always turn to your tutor, of course, but you may be unsure. Should I be writing about this? And again, we are really there to help you. We do have some powers. That is, we could talk with you, listening, very openly, not trying to twist words or whatever, but listen and say, okay, what can we do? So this is really an interesting rule, and it has been quite useful in the past. That's why we are keeping this rule as it is. This is really what I wanted to say in many ways. But it's to make sure that you're never going to be alone, Magdalene or in Cambridge. Sometimes it can be a bit daunting. It is. It was so scary the first time I arrived. I'll tell you the stories. It was actually the previous college marshal when just stepping into the lodge was almost like a scary experience. But after that, it's been absolutely incredible. But Magdalene is we are going to be very supportive, helping you through the way, throughout your studies, but also your life in college. But remember that anything that is been untold, something happened, either it's extreme extremely violent, extremely serious. You may be lost. Normally, there will be you have been told about procedures, and there is going to be a wonderful workshop on Wednesday, and I hope to be attending. But yes, something could happen, something either obviously extremely serious, or you're unsure. You can turn to us as a first port of call. Yes, so Amira, and I think you could check her out on the website to know who she is, and myself. And that's why I'm here in person. This is it. To say. The second thing is we leave hyper confidential, but we can then contact other people. That's something which is important. When things happen to you, they won't happen. But if it happens, you know now that there's someone there to help you straight away. Phone, Zoom, and then we can see what could be done. And then, of course, we can trigger the procedures. That's why we thought having this first one sometimes is very difficult. This can be done by the welfare officer, the student welfare officer. Say, like, really, could you get in touch with us? This is kind of stuff. And there we'll start. And we'll solve it. That's the crucial thing. Always solve things. I'm sure, I don't know, I didn't attend the Dean's talk, but there's a beautiful kind of demonstration, legal, intellectual exercise also on how to define things. But with me, it won't be about defining words, it's about how we can help. I will take it very seriously. That's what I wanted to say. So now, are we supposed to have a JCR?
JCR next.
There's a JCR.
I think so. That just says chats, is it? I go with the RLF.
They are great normally, fantastic. They were sitting here last year and the year before. So you're aware of the two workshops, the one on consent and the anti-racism? Yes, have you been told? That's going to be brilliant. But again, it's the Cambridge way. So we think through, and we think through together. It's brilliant. And it's related to all our studies. How are things? This is your second day, or you just arrived? Discovering, meeting each other? Well, it's difficult again. Meeting, we're all separate. We adapt. We love those challenges, constraints. We'll overcome them. For the moment, it seems to be okay. Actually, College Marshall, are we safety-wise? Out. As we.
The complainant asleep or unconscious, and the administration of intoxicating. In those cases, there is a default presumption of that, and the accused would have to displace that presumption by proof. So those are the exceptional cases. Irrebuttable presumption for violence. Irrebuttable presumption for deception as to the nature of the act and impersonation, rebuttable presumption for violence and for being asleep or unconscious, and for the student substance. Apart from those, to come to the basic definition of consent in section 74, the statute provides a person consents if he or she agrees by choice and has the freedom and capacity to make that choice. Agreeing by choice and having the capacity to make a choice. Those are the two elements we've got. Could I emphasize that there is nothing in the law which provides that the absence of protest or resistance shows consent? Cannot say there was consent because the person who is complaining didn't resist or protest. We then need to look at some elements. We have a free choice by someone with capacity. And if they do all of those, then we've got consent. So starting with free, is the choice free? This is a matter for the jury, rather than the judge if it comes to trial. Some cases will be clear. Other cases will be more doubtful. Is consent free, for example, if the accused said to the complainant, if you don't have sex with me, I am ending our relationship? Is that a situation in which the complainant can be said to consent to the sex which follows? A jury question. So firstly, free. Secondly, choice. Choice presupposes that the complainant has options to choose from. Yes, no, and has adequate information about the options so as to make an informed choice. There must be some options. So, free, choice, and finally, capacity to make the choice. And in this context, capacity means mental capacity at the relevant time, rather than mental capacity generally. Mental capacity at the relevant time to make the free. Question one might ask here is there capacity to make a choice when the complainant is drunk? And that's another jury question. But it seems clear that the jury is going to have to ask not whether the drunkenness caused the complainant to be less inhibited, but whether the drunkenness deprived the complainant of capacity to consent. And it is conceivable that severe drunkenness might deprive the complainant of capacity to consent. And if the complainant does not have capacity to consent, then sexual interaction which follows will be unconsented. And will amount to an offence. But could I then emphasise just a few key points here? Firstly, being voluntarily drunk, and these are things I've already said, being voluntarily drunk is not a defence for these offences. If you're drunk and you do something of this sort, you're not going to be able to say to the court, sorry, I was drunk. And I should add, actually, that under the Magdalen discipline procedure, which follows the university discipline procedure on this, it is not an offence. It is not a defence to be drunk there either. And indeed, the Magdalen and the university discipline procedures provide that misconduct can be considered more serious if it arises while under the influence of alcohol. Or under the influence. So being drunk isn't a defence. Secondly, the offence of sexual assault is potentially very wide. Kissing someone without their consent, touching them through their clothes without their consent. Thirdly, and I'm just picking out some particular points for emphasis here. Thirdly, the rebuttable presumption of lack of consent where there is some form of administration of a stupefying or overpowering. Spiking someone's drink leads to a default position. Can be rebutted by evidence, but it leads to a default that they do not. Also, the difficult question of when consent is free. What about alleged consent arising from threats to end a relationship? Is that free consent? Consent arising from threats to otherwise disclose explicit photographs on social media. Have sex with me, or I've got your photographs. Is that a context in which there can be consent? And finally, the fact that the complainant is drunk may mean they are unable. Right, that's my potted lecture on the law concerning sexual offences. As I say, it's not intended to frighten you, but I think it's simply sensible for us all to be aware of how the law is. And one hopes, I'm sure is the case with all of you, one hopes that one's conduct is determined not simply by what's going to be a criminal offence. What's going to be a criminal offence is the very bottom line, above which I very much hope we're all building rules of conduct for ourselves, which are more demanding than that. But the very bottom line is the criminal law, and that's the essence. Could I also say a little in relation to what you might do if non-consensual sexual, or you think it's and Dr. Azarad is coming in a while. He's one of the college's harassment officers, and he will also say something about this, I think, in a bit more detail. But let me just say a little at the bottom. Firstly, of course, if there has been unconsented sexual activity, then, as I say, that is very likely to be capable of being misconduct within the college or the university. And that might be a route down which conduct of this sort could end up being handled. Alternatively, through the police. Secondly, perhaps at a slightly less high level of seriousness, but secondly, there are the college procedures in relation to harassment and some other types of misconduct. And the basic difference between the discipline procedure is that it'll lead to something, eventually to something. Whereas the harassment procedure between and the two can cross over with each other. Thirdly, if you feel at any time in Cambridge or indeed elsewhere that you are in immediate danger of some form of sexual misconduct, call 999. If you think the danger isn't immediate, you can contact the police on the 101 non-emergency number. There is also county-wide in Cambridgeshire, and this isn't university, it's but there is something called the Elms Sexual Assault Referral Centre, Elm as in the tree, the Elms Sexual Assault Referral Centre, which is at Hinchingbrook Hospital. And if you can find that on a search engine, and there's information there as to how to get in touch with them. Before doing most of those things, I would suggest the thing to do, that there has been sexual misconduct in college or in university context, would be to talk to your tutor or to Dr. Azarad or Professor Benison, the harassment officers, talk to the chaplain, Sarah Atkins, or to the JCR or University Student Union welfare people. And those types of people will have an idea as to where it might be best to go next, and will be able to listen and give you some advice. I hope none of this is going to be necessary for anyone, and life will be as it should, without any of this being necessary for anyone. So please forgive me for having come down a bit hard with the maximum sentences for these various offences. But as I say, it's something that is important and matters. Good, I think that's it from me on that topic, unless the head porter, who I see is sitting here listening quietly, has something which he wishes to add. But there we go. Right, I have finished. Just slightly early. You have 5 minutes, I think, now to talk among yourselves before the JCR come. unless there's anything anybody would like to ask, I'll just stand around at the back if you have, or put up a hand now. Or if you want to get in touch, my email address is on the college website. Thank you very much for listening, and enjoy Freshers Week so far as you can. I think you will find that this is an extraordinary whirlwind, but it will calm down, I'm sure. Thank you.
I was planning on showing some, but I don't. That one? This one, please. Hello everyone. I'm not running late, I'm actually ahead of time. Jessie, our president, is not there. It's quite a bit emotional because the first time I'm actually seeing students in the room, 16 months. So it's, because we've been teaching the whole year online. So but it's wonderful to welcome you at Magdalen. I'm there really just to be there so that you know who I am. There's also, I've got a counterpart, there's Professor Amira Benison, who is also the harassment officer. Our role is, in college, is official and unofficial. We are supposed to be, we are a friendly face. We are a listening ear. someone you can come to in all confidence, without fear of bias, knowing that there will be support, and that it will be confidential. So we are not a tutor, we're not a senior tutor, we're not the dean, we are not a wonderful porter, but we are fellows of the college. We have been doing this for many years, so we have a good experience of what could happen and what actually normally, rarely, very rarely happens. But why, on the first day in Cambridge, why do we have all those talks about harassment, sexual misconduct, and those good, very crucial things, so heavy things you'd like to be putting for your books, to hear about your lectures, and so on and so forth. It's about us as a community, because we are going to be together, we're going to be here in this college. We are a close-knit community, interact, with other colleges and the university as well. But it's important to know that things may happen. They always happen. They may have happened before at school. And it's crucial to know that we have zero tolerance on harassment, sexual misconduct, bullying. Knowing you know us, we are intellectuals. We respect life, we respect each other, and we want to learn about each other. That's what this place is about, the beauty of this place. But if something happens, and they may happen, you can actually turn to either Amira or myself. So I'm the fellow in French, and Amira is the fellow in Arabic studies. So how does it work? You just can email us, really at any time. We work during working days. I do check my emails in the evenings. And we are there in case you don't know what to do with what's going on. This kind of stuff, things happen. You can't really rationalize it. It can be you've been hurt, and you may want to resolve the way you resolve things normally, but that's never easy to say. With the other person, if you've been facts, they want to interact. But if you really don't know what to do, you can turn to us. See, you can always turn to your tutor, of course, but you may be unsure. Really, should I be writing about this? And again, we are really there to help you. We do have some powers. That is, we could talk with you, listening, very openly, not trying to twist words or whatever, but listen and say, okay, what can we do? So this is really an interesting role, and it has been quite useful in the past. That's why we are keeping this role as it is. This is really what I wanted to say in many ways. But it's to make sure that you're never going to be alone, Magdalene or in Cambridge. Sometimes it can be a bit daunting. It is. It was so scary the first time I arrived here. I'll tell you the stories. It was like he was college marshal when just stepping into the lodge was almost like a scary experience. But after that, it's been absolutely incredible. But Magdalene is we are going to be very supportive, helping you through the way, throughout your studies, but also your life in college. But remember that anything that has been untold, something happened, either it's extremely violent, extremely serious, you may be lost. Normally there will be, you have been told about procedures, and there is going to be a wonderful workshop on Wednesday, and I hope to be attending. But yes, something could happen, something either obviously extremely serious, or you're unsure. You can turn to us as a first port of call. Yes. So Amira, and I think you could check her out on the website to know who she is, and myself. And that's why I'm here in person. This is it. To say. The second thing is we leave hyper confidential, but we can then contact other people. That's something which is important. When things happen to you, they won't happen. But if it happens, you know now that there's someone there to help you straight away. Phone, Zoom, and then we can see what could be done. And then, of course, we can trigger the procedures. That's why we thought having this first sometime is very difficult. This can be done by the welfare officer, the student welfare officer. Say like, really, could you get in touch with us? This is kind of stuff. And there we'll start. And we'll solve it. That's the crucial thing. Always solve things. But I'm sure, I don't know, I didn't attend the Dean's talk, but there's a beautiful kind of demonstration, legal, intellectual exercise also, how to define things. But with me, it won't be about defining words, it's about how we can help. I will take it very seriously. That's what I wanted to say. So now, are we supposed to have the JCR?
JCR next.
There's a JCR.
I think so. That just says chats, is it? I go with the RLF.
They are great normally, fantastic. They were sitting here last year and the year before. So you're aware of the two workshops, the one on consent and anti-racism? Yes, have you been told? That's going to be brilliant. But again, it's the Cambridge way. So we think through, and we think through together, which is brilliant. And it's related to all our studies. How are things? This is your second day, or you just arrived discovering, meeting each other? Well, it's difficult again. Meeting, we're all separate. We adapt. We love those challenges, constraints. We'll overcome them. For the moment, it seems to be okay. Actually, College Marshall, are we safety-wise? Out. As we. Good setup, quite safe. They need the ventilator and so on. But yes, maybe do you have any questions about anything here? About the library, yes. See it, the new library, collections. Bear in mind that you'll be able to buy all the books you ever wanted to get, but a great great also special sections as well. Expand on your learning. Okay. Oh. Okay. So are we? Yeah, we're waiting for the next. They are. Please. Oh. So you have seen me. I'll be here. Okay? All of you. And I'm here. I'm your Bye-bye. It's going to be a great year.
I'm running a bit ahead of time, so just give me 2 minutes and then we'll start having fun.
Restriction on numbers?
On what?
Have a restriction on the numbers we're allowed in the hall at the moment.
Okay.
So we are broadcasting, camera broadcasting live to some more students stepped outside.
I see, well, that's good to know.
And it is that microphone on the lectern.
So I have to be there, yeah?
Yes, please, if that was okay.
Okay, because I've got a couple of books.
Yeah, they won't hear you outside.
So this microphone. Okay, I'll just bring a couple of other bits. That's it, I think, more or less.
Well, I'll be hiding at the back with the head porter. If you need anything, just wait.
Okay, so are you going to introduce me or shall I just...
I shall indeed. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.
Our next speaker today is the Royal Literary Society Fellow. Sorry, beg your pardon. The Royal Literary Fund Fellow.
That's a nasty rivalry that we don't talk about.
This is Mr. Vitaliev.
Thank you very much. I have to warn you, some of you may not like what's going to follow, but I promise not to torment you for too long. I'll be brief. Remember, brief. Gaudamus igitur, juvenes dum sumus, Gaudamus igitur, juvenes dum sumus, post malestem senectutem, post incundam juventutem, nos habebit humus, nos habebit humus. You know humus, yeah. Just had some for lunch. Anyway, you may, as you're all newcomers, aren't you, in Cambridge, and as such you may not be familiar with this medieval ancient anthem of students. So you have to sing it while standing up. I was standing up. It is often incorrectly translated, its title, as Let's Rejoice While We Are Young. Nothing wrong with that, but its real title is actually, original title is De Brevitate Vita, which means on the shortness of life. Sorry, I hate to sound tragic, but our life is short indeed. Well, you probably don't realize it as yet, but when you reach my age, you probably will feel it a bit more acutely. Also, I'm a Buddhist, and I'm very aware of the impermanence of everything, you know. Nothing lasts, everything goes. Well, and let me come to writing from here. Writing is a very essential part of our earthly occupations. We actually spend much more time writing than you can imagine. And if our life is short, and our pleasures are short as well, I think our writing should strive to be brief. Clarity, laconic meaning, succinct sentences, that's the key. That's the key to a good writing. And that's one of the first rules I want you to remember. And let me tell you straight away that here I'm going to tell you a couple of things about my favorite writers of all time, mostly Russian writers because I come from Russia, so basically I'm entirely bilingual, write in both languages and published 14 books written in English, only one written in Russian, but that's probably because I actually left the Soviet Union over 30 years ago as one of the last political defectors from the USSR, and I actually left because of what I was writing. So writing really was kind of my doom and my fate and my joy as well. I was the first investigative journalist in the USSR officially, and obviously the authorities didn't like some of my investigations, and I had a family which I had to save, so I had to leave, and I haven't been back to Russia since then, believe it or not. So sometimes I puzzle my friends by saying I spent 15 years of my life in Moscow, but I've never been to Russia. And this is true, because I've only been to the Soviet Union. Back to writing, and why it has to be brief. I would say that all these long-winded, evasive, over-loquacious constructions that we often encounter in literature and in academic work as well, they are, by being what they but by being so long-winded and so hard to comprehend, they're being kind of criminals. They're committing capital crime because people who read them and people who write them, they both waste their life, waste their time, and well, it's a kind of a form of murder, I would say, if you read something which is not expressed very clearly. You're losing your time, you're losing the precious time of your life. So I would make it punishable by some long prison sentences. I don't think I will ever be allowed to do so. But please remember, try to be brief. All those cacophonic articles, essays, books, all those in terms of the center of solutions, unnecessary words, making the sense of what you're writing incomprehensible. They are not as innocent as they sound. So let's try and avoid it, and always remember the old students' anthem about how short our life is. Anton Chekhov, one of the classics of Russian literature, said famously that brevity is a sister of talent. Brevity. And he obviously carried out his own kind of pronouncement very well in his short stories. Most of his stories are beautifully short and beautifully meaningful and beautifully clear. Leo Tolstoy, the other ex-compatriot of mine, once wrote in one of his letters, "I don't have time, sorry, to write you a short letter, that's why I'm writing you a long letter." And he was exactly right. It's much easier to just put all your flow of thoughts on paper without thinking, and without thinking of the addressee who is going to read them, than try and do some work on it, to polish it up, to do some careful processing of the material with which you work, which are words for writers. Well, if you look at some of Leo Tolstoy's own creations, his novels, Anna Karenina, and of course War and Peace especially, I still have to find a person who would honestly, with his hand on the Bible or on the heart, whatever, would tell me that he actually read all 6 volumes to the end. I suspect that Leo Tolstoy himself hasn't quite finished reading it. It's too long. And another great Russian writer, Ivan Bunin, the Nobel Prize winner, and a great stylist, second to none stylist, and a great poet as well. He claimed that he could have, if he had a chance, rewritten War and Peace, having made it 10 times shorter and 10 times better. And I'm sure he would. Given a chance, he probably would. He also, Ivan Bunin, came up with another expression that I always kind of repeat when I find it difficult to start another book or another column. I write lots of columns, reviews, whatever. Every time starting is difficult. Sometimes it seems and feels almost impossible. But I felt much better when I read Bunin's pronouncement to the effect that the main thing for a writer is to learn not to recoil from a clean sheet of paper. Not to recoil from a clean sheet of paper, because you do recoil, it's awful. Okay, we can replace it with a clean, blank computer screen. Disgusting, yeah, you look at it and it expects you to do something that is not there, to create something out of nothing. It's like trying to climb a mountain without any mountain climbing equipment and with your hand tied up behind your back, It seems impossible, and I think the difficulty of starting is in direct proportion to the amount of work you have to do. It's pretty hard to start, as you all probably know, an essay or a little report, unless it's a text report, but that's kind of a bit easier maybe. But starting a book is an impossibility sometimes. You have to climb this huge mountain, and it's scary. And in my case, in vain do I look at the shelves with my previous books, different editions, and say, you could do it before, you can do it now. But this little devil inside, you keep saying, oh, no. Then you were younger, you were a better writer, you had more time, this and that, and now you won't be able to do it. This kind of struggle goes on. I'm talking about, writers like myself, for many months sometimes. To start this book, which actually I have been writing it in my head for over 17 years, but to start putting it on paper took 3.5 months of finding excuses not to write, of having coffees, of reading newspapers, of going for walks, and then said, okay, tomorrow. And it took me a while to understand, and I want you to remember that as well, that while you're struggling with yourself, finding difficult to start, you're already writing. You're already putting the words, if not on paper as yet, but somewhere in space. Without it, writing is impossible. It is it's the first stage of the writing process. I mean, of course, it's much better if it's not too long a stage, because you all have deadlines. Deadlines are like lifesavers for writers. Without deadlines, no book would ever appear, because we would sit on our hands forever, and find lots of excuses not to do anything. But just remember, you are already writing while you are struggling with yourself. I can tell you even more. Without the struggle, you cannot write anything at all. It is a precondition of successful writing. And let me say immediately that when I say writing, I mean not just Tolstoy and Chekhov and Shakespeare, great literature. I mean your essays, I mean your reports, I mean any kind of writing, because if you forget about slight differences between all of them, the similarities are obvious. Any kind of writing is sharing your words, your soul, your thoughts, whatever, with other people and with yourself. No matter what you write, be it about the history of, I don't know, internal combustion engine, or, well, I'm not a very technical person, or about kind of some amazing mountain scape. Actually, descriptions are quite difficult, but there is similarity between or among all those different genres of writing. There's much more similarity than differences. That's why when I give you examples from literature, from great writers, you can easily apply them to yourselves. So, and we just came to not recoiling, or recoiling or not recoiling from a clean sheet of paper or a blank computer screen, which is probably the main hurdle of any writer. So what's the solution? Do a bit of struggle, yes, if you can't avoid it, but then just sit down and start. Just write anything that comes to your head. Where do you start? I mean, where? Well, not from the beginning. No, never start from the beginning. If you try to start from the beginning, you will cross it out later. But if you start from the end, start from the conclusion, start from the middle. There is a very old, still from antique times, literary device called in medias res. In medias res. I translate it as kind of plunging into the story. Start from the middle, basically. A boat overturned in the middle of the river. Good start. Or the boat, whatever. When he woke up, the dinosaur was no longer there. First sentence. Very good. You want to know what happened next? This one is a bit of a joke. There is a very good, actually, starting line. It was a dark and stormy night, which belongs to a very prolific English writer of the 19th century. He was more famous than Dickens then. Lived not far from here in Nebworth, not far from where I live. Edward Bulwer-Lytton. So this is the beginning of one of his many, many novels. It was a dark and stormy night, which now is used as an example of how not to start the novel, because it's cliche. Too many people used it, but I think it's a fairly good start. He sings on a toilet of a morning. Yuri Alesha, a Russian writer, the novel called Envy. He sings on a toilet of a morning. You want to know why he sings, who is he, and so on. So just make it in a bit, even in an essay, try to intrigue your learned readers, your teachers, or whoever is going to read them. Try to start with a final point, maybe you're going to make without making it. Just grab them by the horns, grab their attention. So that's, again, it's easier said than done, but that's what one of the things we are going to practice with you at our one-to-one sessions throughout the academic year, and hopefully for longer than that. The best starting sentence for me comes from Joseph Heller, whom I had an honor to be friends with. He's sadly deceased now. In his autobiographical novel Now and Then, the first sentence is, the gold rings on the carousels were made of brass. The gold rings were made of brass on the carousels. Well, there is a wonderful kind of paradox here that you want to know, you want to uncover. How come the gold things can be made of brass, what kind of carousels, and so on and so on. So the attention is grabbed, and then you can carry on. Talking about writing, a writer has to be a pharmacist as well. Yes, adjectives, adverbs, all kinds of literary devices, of which there are many. Well, I even think that life in itself is a literary device. So this is the book about, basically, it's called, subtitled, The Writer's Manual of Survival, which it did help a lot of people to survive. At least I know that a lot of students too, by the way. Some kind of survival tips here. All these adjectives and adverbs in particular, you have to be very careful with. Don't use more than one per word normally. And for example, adverbs like very can be in 99.9% of cases just crossed out because they don't mean anything at all. Try it next time and you will see that I'm right. And that again makes your writing a bit shorter, a bit better, and a bit more kind of powerful. So watch those. Don't be afraid of slightly longer sentences as long as there is meaning in them. The language, the style has to be transparent like water, like quiet water. You should look through it and not notice it. And you should still read well. That's actually another good Russian writer, modern writer, Viktor Pelevin, says that. Interesting thing that I can actually tell you, and I have the right to tell you that. Why? Because, not because I'm kind of very special or brilliant or whatever, but because I had an interesting life. I was lucky. I spent half of my life exactly, well, so far, almost half, more than half of my life so far, but maybe one day it will be half, in the Soviet Union, in the totalitarian state, where free thought was very heavily controlled. I was actually one of the last political defectors from the USSR, being already quite a well-known journalist. So I had to leave the country and not to return. I don't like the word to defect. It doesn't have a very nice kind of sound connotation. So I had to leave and not to return because of what I was writing, because of my investigative journalism. In a way, having to deal with censorship, I was a special correspondent of a very large magazine called Crocodile. We were selling 6 million copies of it 3 times a year, which was supposed to be satirical, supposed to be critical of the system, but it was controlled by the system as well, which is a kind of oxymoron, a paradox. So we are still trying, we knew how to write between the lines, and our readers knew how to read between the lines, which was a great schooling, There are such literary devices as, for example, double entendre. It's when the sentence that you read is not exactly what it seems to be, but there is a hidden meaning there. And sometimes more than one. Chekhov's plays are so popular and so great because you can never play the first level of what is written there. If you just take everything that is written in Three Sisters or Cherry Orchard, as it's written, it's kind of some kind of rubbish. What are the people talking about some cherry orchard moving to Moscow? But when you try to look deeper, you find the second, the third, and sometimes the fourth meaning. Then that's what the greatest theaters, greatest actors would pick up and try and recreate it on stage. So, well, basically, a good proper writing should have more than one meaning. That's why writing between the lines was a good schooling for us in the Soviet Union. But of course, the situation was not healthy at all. When I was 7 years old, my parents told me, never say what you think if you want to survive, and they had to do it because, well, I always found it difficult, actually. I always would get into trouble, but, well, at least I was aware. I was aware that walls have ears, for example. I always thought that they looked like little pig's ears for some reason. Tried to find them as a little boy on the walls, but couldn't, which was frustrating. So you had to live under this constant kind of in the constant fear of being overheard, of getting into trouble, of wolves having ears, which is horrible. Someone, I think it was George Bernard Shaw, who called censorship the extreme form of murder, which is, murder the extreme form of censorship. Yeah, you're censoring someone who you think is not worth living or lives incorrectly. Yeah, murder is the extreme form of censorship. So we're always facing this kind of censorship in our lives in the USSR. I'm only saying this to you because you should realize what kind of bliss it is to be able to express your thoughts freely without thinking of who is going to interpret them in what way and so on. And that's why, again, this is another argument for your writing to be as clear as possible, not overloaded, not long-winded, but just clear and punchy, like another literary genre, which we are not going to work in. It has different laws, but which I would want all of you to like and to read as many books in this genre as possible. I'm talking about poetry, classical poetry, rhymed stanzas, not necessarily very liber modern poetry, because when you are kind of squeezed by the demands of a metered line, it teaches you to be careful with words. You have to find this correct word, this right word, which would fit into the pattern, which is not easy. It's a beautiful schooling for writers. I myself started with writing poetry, was a published poet by the age of 17, and then, kept doing it, and, then I kind of switched over to prose, which happens very often. I think most poets can write prose, but not all kind of people who can write prose can be poets. That's an interesting correlation. So when the Bolsheviks came to power in the Soviet Union in 1918, one of the first decrees they issued was to change the Russian language. Why did they do so? Because language is very political. What they did, they canceled several letters they thought unnecessary in the alphabet. They introduced lots of meaningless abbreviations, tried to abbreviate anything, any, like Cambridge University, call it CU, and the whole thing disappears. The whole beauty of Cambridge, the whole history disappears. It becomes just CU, whatever is CU, no one knows. So they introduced all these horrible things like Comintern and KVD, VCK, and so on and so forth, even USSR, because you don't see the whole horrible essence, if you pronounce the abbreviation, you don't think about it. They also made the Russian language extremely bureaucratic. The sentences were very hard to kind of get through. All the decrees are written in a horrible bureaucratic style. And the purpose of it was to make their goals that sounded nice, but in their essence were quite horrible actually, much more vague, to understand than they were in reality. And here I want to quote you my favorite writer of all times, George Orwell, who actually had a house not far from here, in the village called Wallington, and lived there for 6 years. And the animal farm is still there, by the way, which he used as a prototype for his animal farm, the real animal farm. Not too many people know about it. So he wrote in the essay, Why I Write, political language is designed to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable. So to give an appearance of solidity to pure wind, that's exactly, what we must try and avoid, to give an appearance of solidity to pure wind. And to do so, we should stop making pure wind. We should start making sense, basically. So this is again to say that the language is very political. And, as a contrast to that, life is full of contrasts. In the same year, 1918, another Russian great poet, manic depressive person, an alcoholic, and a genius, Alexander Blok, he comes up with this poem, which only consists basically of nouns alone, without verbs. In Russian, ночь, улица, фонарь, аптека, бессмысленный тусклый свет. Живи еще хоть четверть века, все будет так, исхода нет. Night, square, apothecary, lantern, its meaningless and pallid light. Return a half a lifetime after, all will remain, escapeless right. So you see, each of these words, night, square, apothecary, lantern, they hit you like a hammer. Yes, absolutely. They don't require any adjectives. So of course, he could have written dark night, round, not round, but large square, and this and that. But you don't need it because one word night is enough to create the whole image of the place, the image that he was striving for. So, just a couple of words about myself and why am I standing here, basically not very much with an English name, and not born here, but still being called a British writer and the writer who won awards as a British writer and who is proud of being called British writer, because I always remember here the expression of Joseph Conrad, who was actually a Polish Jew from Chernivtsi, but a great English writer, British writer. He joined, he became a sailor basically at about 18 and had a lot of experience mixing, obviously, with the sailors from all over the world. One of the best stylists in the English language. And he said the nationality of a writer is the language he writes in. And this is exactly true. I mean, in my case, it was difficult, probably more than for Joseph Conrad or for Vladimir Nabokov, another great bilingual writer whose English, in the words of Martin Amis, is second only to that of Shakespeare. So good it is. So it is kind of possible, because I know that for some of you, English is not their native language. Well, it doesn't matter. I think the capacity for language lies deeper than just in the knowledge of a certain set of words, Learn a new language, get a new soul, they say. It's a Czech proverb, by the way. So it's possible. It was even possible for someone like myself, a little boy from a smoky industrial city in Ukraine with no foreigners around at all, apart from maybe some slightly drunken near the tourist hotel, because the city was closed to foreigners from the West, of course, completely. So I had a great teacher who was educated still before the Bolsheviks came to power. See how old I am, gosh. Anyway, he was still educated in a pre-revolutionary grammar school, a normal secondary school before 1917, from where everyone came up being fluent in 3 living languages and 2 dead languages, meaning Greek and Latin, of course. So his English was absolutely perfect, and he taught us. I mean, we didn't touch grammar for about 5 years. We didn't try it. We only played and chatted, because there is a very kind of sure method to destroy anyone's affection to any languages by introducing grammar first, and especially the kind of names of the present perfect continuous and so on. And that's what they did deliberately in the Soviet Union. So people would remember present perfect continuous, but would have no idea what it meant. Okay? So basically, we played, we did things basically without necessarily knowing how they're kind of academically called, We are trying to be simple, and we couldn't spend all our time, of course, with the teacher. So we were encouraged, in his absence, I was encouraged to talk to a wardrobe and to a fridge, for example. And I had no problems with the wardrobe, who was a kind of nice, bulky, taciturn fellow. So would listen to me very patiently. But the fridge was a bit kind of irritable and would make all this guttural sound sometimes, in response to my innocent, "How are you today?" So basically, but you had to do it. You kept doing it. I knew people at my university where I studied who never went abroad. Our teachers, one of the teachers was fluent in 18 languages. We checked him, he knew all the words from the Miller English-Russian dictionary. Well, people would withdraw inside themselves and make the internal world very interesting and very rich for themselves. And language was a very, very important part of it. So I'm just telling you all brevity, clarity, and don't be put off by the fact that English may not be a native tongue. I mean, I worked on the staff of the biggest English language newspapers of the world in the USA, in Britain, and Australia as a columnist, and you know, my colleagues would very often bring me their copy for a final one source. At Italy, have a look, you know, well, we never learn our language, you know, properly, which is true. Some of the editors of my first books here surprised me by not being able to spell, native speakers and not being able to spell, and they were kind of quite proud of it. Oh, I can't spell. Well, so sometimes, you know, people for whom the language is not native, they have kind of a bigger urge to speak, to learn, and to write it properly. And here I want to kind of nearly probably wrap up with an example. And again, it's an extract from an essay by one of my favorite writers, Vladimir Nabokov, who wrote with equal brilliance in English, in Russian, I think a bit in French as well. And he was a Cambridge student. He came to Cambridge in 1921. So we walked the same streets here. And that's how he saw it. Back and forth along the narrow streets, dark bicycles covered in mud, ringing their bells, motorcycles cackle, and wherever you look, all around swarm the kings of Cambridge town, the students, their dress ties flicker like striped crossing barriers, the extraordinary crumpled seniors' trousers flickering in all shades of grey, from whitish and cloud-colored to wild dark grey trousers, wonderfully matching the color of the neighboring walls, and so on and so on. In the morning, grabbing notebooks and regulation cloaks in a heap, these dirty lads hurry to their lectures, making their way single file into the lecture halls, sleepily listening to the mumblings of a wise mummy on the rostrum. I shouldn't be saying that, should I? And awakening suddenly signal their approvals through the pulsating stamping of their feet, when amid the dull flow of academic speech, a flash of wit splashes like a fish. Well, I wish all of us could write like that, and I'm sure you could, because you are the kings of Cambridge. As Nabokov rightly said, you're the students here, and I can't wait to start working with you. The sessions, the technical side is explained in my poster, and I think you can look it up on the website as well, but it's 50-minute sessions which you have to book in advance. Come with send me a copy of what you want to talk about in advance. One thing to remember, we are going to discuss it, we are going to talk about all kinds of things to make you better writers. I'm not going to do your writing for you, so you'll have to do it yourselves. So I can only steer you in the right direction. I mean, you cannot teach a person to write. I mean, that's what I want to finish on. It was much better put by another great 20th century British writer, Somerset Maugham, who once wrote, "There exist three main rules of writing. Unfortunately, no one knows what they are. Gaudamus igitur, Juvenes dum sumus, Gaudamus igitur." Thank you. Thank you very much.
Do I need any notes? Yeah.
Right. Is everyone in? Hello? Okay, good. Hello, I'm Matthew. I'm a third year natural science student doing history and philosophy of science, and I'm the JCR president this year until December, when we have elections, so someone run for things. Well, welcome to Magdalen. I mean, I'm sure you've probably been told that lots of times already, but welcome to Magdalen from the JCR. It's nice to meet everyone, sort of. I've met lots of you during the tours yesterday. But, hello. Yeah, okay, so I hope everyone's settling in okay. And oh, this year, outside of households, there's less COVID restrictions. Last year, people could only meet their households. Sorry, very poorly. Okay, so there's, I'm just talking about the JCR basically, and what we do. So you probably, most of you have come in contact with our Facebook groups. If you haven't, and you have Facebook, then join the Magdalen Freshers 2021 Facebook group and the Magdalen College JCR Facebook groups. The Magdalen Freshers one is very good, one where everyone communicates. It's part of the community thing. The Magdalen JCR Facebook page is where we will give you information about things. A lot of it is about our events and things that college want us to promote. So they are very useful Facebook pages for you to join. We also email and have a newsletter that we send out for information. Sorry, I realised that you probably had lots of information thrown at you today, so sorry more. There's the JCR and college facilities are very good. I hope a lot of you will have seen the JCR at least when you picked up your gowns. Gowns with me. Yeah, the old college bar is now the JCR room. It's a new room. It's much nicer than the old room, which is now the parcel room. Yes, so it's when it's not being used to sell gowns, it's a great social space, especially now since it's the old bar, better social space. We've also got the new library, which I'm sure you'll probably see at some point this week. Anyway, Freshers Week is this week. I hope you're enjoying it. Lots of great events. I think there's events every day. And that's all organised by the JCR and the Freshers Committee. So do take part in them. They are a very good way for you to meet everyone else in your year. I encourage you to take part in things and meet people, because I realise that at this point you don't know anyone, and it's kind of terrifying to be in a completely new place. So do Freshers Week stuff. It's fun. And if you don't do it, you'll wish you did do it when, in months' time, everyone else is talking about all the Freshers Week events that they went to. Even if they hated them, you feel like you missed out if you don't do them. That's a fact. Yeah, what else? Oh yeah, it's family night tonight. You should all have been contacted by college parents. If you have not been contacted by college parents, please contact me or Felix or Fran, the Freshers reps. If you contact me, I will probably just forward you onto the Freshers reps. But they're in charge of college families and making sure that everyone has been contacted. As I say, there should be some sort of family night event for you tonight, so do make sure to get in touch with Felix and Fran today if you haven't talked to your college parents, because that's just a great way to help you settle in and to meet people, especially people doing your course. It's a very fun part of college life, especially during Freshers Week. A great way for you to meet people in other years, and also your own year. Okay, so made random notes, scribbled down, and now I'm trying to read them. Right, so yeah, I hope you use this week to settle in and meet each other. Freshers Week is very good. It's organised by the JCR. There are events from many JCR officers, which I'm sure they will probably promote to you when they say hello. Listen to them, because if their events sound interesting, go to them. They will be. And finally, the main event at the end of Freshers Week, I would say, is BOP, which is on Friday in the evening. It's great. We've not had one for the whole time we've had COVID, because you can't have BOP during COVID, because what it is, it's a big social event. I'm sure Alice will talk about that. Alice is our ENTS officer. She'll talk about BOP, I hope, because I haven't said much about it. Buy tickets when you can, which will be Thursday. £5. It's great fun, definitely worth it, and everyone in all the higher years will want to go, so make sure you get tickets, because they'll go very quickly, because we've not had one in 2 years, almost. Right, other quick things I should mention. Again, sorry, I realise lots of information. Some of it is probably very uninteresting. I apologise for that. There's also, so we're the JCR, but there's also a university-wide student union, which is your more sort of traditionally what you would think of student unions to be. You know, the sort of lobbying the university and campaigning a lot more. Yeah, they are the ones who are hosting the University Freshers Fair on Tuesday and Wednesday in Parker's Piece. I would recommend booking a ticket for that, because that's a good experience, and you just get to see a lot of student societies. If you want to do that, you have to go to their website, which is cambridgesu.co.uk. I think they changed the website recently, but I think it's cambridgesu.co.uk. So go to that to book a ticket for your for the Freshers Fair. Yeah, and then other than that, this is the JCR, which is the Junior Combination Room, which is confusingly the name of the room, the Junior Combination Room. The entire undergraduate body, everyone. And also the committee. But usually, if people say the JCR, they mean either the room or these people who get voted for in November to take place. So if the new committee comes in January, I would definitely encourage you to run if you're interested. We have lots of roles, we do lots of different things. I'm the president, so I'm responsible for giving a talk to new freshers when they arrive, and also for lots of other things, such as mainly dealing with college and sort of representing any concerns. So if you have any problems, you can send them to me if you don't know who in college to talk to, and I can either tell you the right people to contact or contact the right people for you and try and sort things out, or if you have any general concerns, but mainly we're here to represent student interests and also to, in Freshers Week, welcome you to college. And then there's various other roles that do other things, and I won't take the spotlight away from them by stealing their opportunity to introduce themselves. They'll probably do it much more efficiently than I will. I'm trying to think, is there anything else? I've run out of notes, but that's probably just time to write notes down. Probably got more to say, but I can't think of anything else. So, oh yeah, the JCR is a great room. That I should have said earlier. I probably did. But apparently it's noted down at the end for some reason. So, JCR is a great room. Otherwise, committee will come up to the lectern and introduce themselves. And then, once they've done that, if you have any questions for me, I think come back to the lectern. Apparently there's people over there who need to hear me. And you can ask questions. I will answer them.
Hi, I'm Karadig. I am the Access and Academic Officer. So my job is, I have two different jobs. One is to organise and coordinate access events with the college and the student union. And my other is to deal with any sort of academic representation on behalf of the college, usually in the form of dealing with the libraries committee. So if any of you are interested in taking part in access events, I'd encourage you all to take part. We have a drop-in tea on Tuesday between 12 and 2. We're all welcome to have some free cake and just talk about access things. And then we also have, this college is also running a access stall at the Freshers Fair. I hope to see you all there.
Hello, I'm Andrew. I'm the treasurer, so you guys all probably have received invoices from me at this stage. If anyone hasn't, can you please just check your email and fill out the interest form. I hear from Fran the collection went pretty well today. If anyone has any issues or questions, this probably isn't the best time because I kind of know when I was here it's getting quite long, but just email me. You should have my email by now. I hope it goes well and enjoy Freshers Week.
Hi, I'm Alice. I'm the ENTS officer, so throughout the year I organise different social events for the undergrads in college. It's been a bit dry last 18 months on social events, but hopefully this term we're going to pick it up a bit more, so expect to hear more about maybe some Halloween themed events, some Christmas themed events later on in term. Hopefully make the most of what we can do, but most importantly, this Friday is Bop. It's always a really fun event. We get like a DJ in. It's a one price ticket and you get drinks throughout the night, so it's really sort of hassle-free and it's fun. You get to dress up in these costumes. Everyone sort of really embraces the fact that it's quite cheesy but still a really fun night, and everyone comes out in full force. Tickets will be sold on Thursday afternoon, evening. I still need to determine the timings of that, and I will email a full email with all the information tonight, so you shouldn't miss that, and hopefully you'll have all the information about testing and that sort of stuff to get you into BOP. There's also a Facebook event, so if you're on Facebook you might have seen it. But yeah, that's my role. Hopefully see you all on Friday.
Hi everyone, I'm Jason, the International Students Officer. I've sent some emails to you, I think, recently, and I think some of you have met me or have contacted me about things about arriving to Cambridge or settling down before. And so my job is to welcome every international student and make them let them feel that Cambridge and Magdalen is their home for now. So if you have any questions about life in Cambridge or how to get things done, I guess the logistical things about being in a new place, and let me know. Send something to my email and I'll help you as long as I can. And I am doing a social event at Mixer on this Thursday, the 7th, 4 to 5 p.m. So it would be a good chance for you to meet other international students, meet some new friends if you haven't seen that many people yet, and just have some fun, have some snacks, and relax for a bit after I think the lectures start for the first day. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Ina. I'm one of the JCR welfare representatives. And I work with Ollie, who's not here today, but you'll probably meet him on Tuesday because we have a welfare workshop for you. So I'll explain a bit more about my role in that workshop, hopefully you'll understand what I do. But yeah, no, so I'll see you all then, and hopefully I'll see lots of you for welfare donuts on Friday, free donuts, can't say no to that, and for welfare tea on Sunday. Yeah, looking forward to meeting lots of you.
Hello, I'm Bradley. I'm the LGBT rep. So the only thing that I've got going on really this week is we have Glitter Bomb Free, so Glitter Bomb's a club night on Tuesday. So on your fresher timetable, that is confirmed, but that's going to be held in the JCR. Any questions? Just message me. Have a good week.
I'm Ellie, I'm the Women's Officer, and so I'm also the President of the College Feminist Society. We'll have a stall, so if you want to come over then and ask any questions. Wednesday from 2 till 4. It's just drop in, there's arts and crafts, and yeah, and have a great week.
Hi, I'm Layla. I'm the Catering and Accommodation Officer. So I mainly do room stuff and bar technically, been a bit dead over last year. I'm also Moreland Boat Club's Honorary and Social Secretary, and we are the biggest Moreland society. You will meet hundreds of rowers whilst you're here, and we are having socials this week, including the Freshers Learn to Row barbecue at the Boathouse on Saturday. I think you've been sent an email, I'll send another one. And a sort of quiz and drinks night in Crypt on Sunday night.
Hi guys, my name is Vesta and I'm the class action officer. So basically I look after students in college who are state school students or who are disadvantaged socially, economically, or financially. So if you have any queries or anything like that, you can always come to me. This Thursday in Crypt's room 4 we have basically a tea room. So you have free cake, free tea, you guys can come along if you're any of the students like I've listed. So if you want to come in for a chat, I'm here.
Hi everyone, I'm Winita and I'm the BME officer, and that stands for Black and Minority Ethnics Officer. So what I do is I help to welcome students, welcome BME students into the Magdalen college community. I also help to voice any concerns that you might have during term time. We have the anti-racism workshop happening on Wednesday from 4 to 5, and we expect all of you to come and attend just to get the conversation going. And then on Saturday from 6 to 7 we have a BME mixer event, so if you identify as a BME student, we'd love to see you there. You can meet fellow BME students, and if you are not a BME student, you are still welcome to come and attend. There'll be pizza and drinks, and it'll be a nice time.
Hi everyone, I'm Kate, the Green and Charities Officer for this year. So if you've got anything sort of green related or on the charities side, do feel free to shoot me an email or add me on Facebook. This week we've got on Tuesday at midday a sustainability workshop in collaboration with Cambridge Hub. So if you've not heard of them, they're kind of a big organisation that students get involved with, and they do not just environmental work but kind of loads of different causes. And apart from that, we have, subject to the gardener's van having enough fuel, plant sale on Wednesday, so that will be 2 till 4.
Hi, I'm Fran, one of the Freshers Rats. Hopefully you've probably met me maybe this morning when I got lost on the tour, or when giving you like wristbands and gowns today. I'm also with Felix, who was knocking about yesterday, so you might have met him as well. In terms of any events we've got planned, hopefully you've all seen the timetable already. If not, drop me a message, I can send it to you, or if you have any questions. In terms of the gown and wristband sale, I think it went really well this morning, but I've spoken to a couple of you who had to come for the talk. So if you do still need wristbands, gowns, etc., like come see me in the JCR when this is finished, and I'll be there for a bit. If not, we're also doing another one tomorrow at 2, where you do need to come up and sign up for family swap night, which is basically where we'll all go to a restaurant called Curry King, and we'll go with your families, and we'll say drinks, food, and it'll be really nice. But yeah, I think that's everything from me. If you've got any questions.
Hi, so my name's Rosie. I am the JCR secretary. So the main thing that I'll do that you'll probably be involved in is I send out a weekly email where I just sort of gather all of the things up that are going on in college, and just sort of it's a place that you can sort of see what's going on. So if anyone does ever have anything they want advertising or communicating, send me a message and I'll put it in. So that'd be things like notices, events, I don't know, particularly you want to say. I can like advertise that for you, and it gets sent to all the undergrads. The other thing that I do is I'm technically the IT officer. So if you have any like IT support, like connecting to Wi-Fi, or you need to work out how to print something, you can drop me an email. If you do have something more serious, like your laptop's broken, maybe send that to the IT office. But if you want me to deal with that, I can sort of communicate that to them, and then hopefully they'll like help you in some way, because I cannot fix computers. The other thing is I'm on the Freshers Committee, so you might have seen me last night at the pub quiz. I'll be helping Fran out with some things going on, so I'll probably see you around at some point.
Hey everyone, I'm Rishi, I'm the Vice President of the JCR. What I do is basically various jobs, like I organise the elections and the meetings we have, and I'll send around information so you guys know when that's happening. I make the Bop Juice, which I hope you guys will be getting acquainted with on Friday, and I also just work with other committee members if there's anything they're working on. So if you guys have anything you want to know about the JCR or want raised, you're welcome to contact obviously myself or Matthew at any point, and we will help you out. Yeah, thanks.
Hey, you might have seen on the Freshers timetable that tonight that you've got your sort of family night, and then there's a swap later. We've actually decided to give you a bit more time with your family, so it's just going to be complete family night tonight, and you might go to the pub with that. If that's any issues with you or your family, just let me know, and we'll probably be but yeah.
That's everyone. I'm started, but we may take them long. But does anyone have any questions they really need to ask? I feel like this is probably not a time when people feel like they really want to ask a question. Room full of 70 people. So yeah, yes, feel free to email me. That's a good point. I think, I don't know whether I'd say, well, my email address is mjh270 Cambridge, I think, but you probably won't have that. But email me. I'm also president of act.campus. Contact the questions next. Questions can be passed on. But that's done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker today is Taryn Rothwell, who is the college nurse. You may already have had some information, you should already have had some information sent out, and hopefully you've already replied. If you haven't, please could you do that as a matter of urgency. And in the meantime, I will let Taryn talk to you now.
Hello everyone. If you want to stand up and just do a stretch, you're welcome to. If you're happy to sit, that's fine. Yeah, just do a stretch. There we go. All right. You know when you have one of those days where everything goes wrong? Well, I had one of those days. One of my family members thought they were very kind and gave me a new water bottle. So I thought, I'm going to use it today. Put it in my rucksack. Guess what? All my notes were wet. So anyway, I think, because they work at another university, I think a lot of students are going to have wet papers. So I better warn them. Anyway, so to let you know, like Kai said, I'm the college nurse, Taryn Rothwell. I help with any minor injuries or illnesses. So I'm very part-time, but you can find me at Benson. I'm situated in the village. I'm actually situated in student accommodation. So if you think, oh, health centre, separate, no, within the student accommodation, and there is a sign, you'll find me. If not, just email me or ask the porters. They know everything about where to find things. So, when I mentioned, help with minor injuries and illnesses, and also help with if you're just feeling low, or you've got someone else that's, their behaviour's changed. They're not maybe as outgoing, they're more withdrawn, they're not eating as much as they used to. Don't feel that's your responsibility. Or the other way around, they've been very quiet and all of a sudden they have odd behaviour where they're doing things that they never usually do. So I'm just mentioning it now so that you can just keep an eye on each other. And if you're not sure how to approach it, there's other people you can talk to, myself, the tutors, the chaplain, just to have a word. We don't expect you to carry that responsibility. And why I'm saying that is that people feel very, you've got underdeveloped friendships and you really want to make friends and you really want to help. And that's great. But there's sometimes that we need to signpost to others. Okay, so just reach out when you say, you don't have to give your friend's name, but you could just say, I have a friend, what do you think? And then we can help you. So when Kai said about information that I sent, mainly is the student health form, and within the student health form, it was linked to GP surgeries. So the most important thing is registering with a GP. I also sent a link using the NHS as a student in Cambridge. I know you get a lot of emails. So if you want to say, hey, Taryn, can't remember, can you send me this link again? Happy to do so. I'd rather you know than not know. And it's also important if you've got any chronic illnesses like epilepsy, diabetes, chronic asthma that you feel, gosh, I've been so busy getting ready for university that I've had this cough. I know it's not COVID, and I've been using my inhalers, and this cough is not getting better. I would really suggest you go and review it with a GP, especially if you haven't had it reviewed for quite some time. I'm thinking people that maybe lived on the coast, coming inland, your asthma might change. Overseas students that are coming to a different climate, things might change and you might need to have that reviewed. So with epilepsy and that, if you haven't mentioned, it's important, the reason I'm saying that is get in touch with me as soon as possible, is that if you have seizures and at night and no one knows, that Ryan does a PIPS, with a personal evacuation plan, so that we know that if students have some problem or diabetes or they've got low blood sugar, that we know we've got to keep an eye on some of our students so to make sure they're safe. So please, if you haven't let me know about those chronic illnesses or any other illnesses, you're not sure if I need to know, please let me know. I think I've got most of the student health forms. If for any reason you feel, oh, I can't remember if I got that student health form, again, just email me and I'll follow up the reason why. So I'm thinking of our international students, how to use the NHS. Because a couple of years ago, I had a student who's saying, oh, do I have to pay for the ambulance? Because in our country, we do. So, no, you don't have to pay for the ambulance. So the most important thing, if you can remember, is if you're worried about your health and the GP surgery is closed, please call 111 for medical advice or emergencies 999. Again, the porters can help, because if you call the ambulance, you need to let the porters know so they can direct as quickly as possible the ambulance service. The porters are also very good in first aid if you're not sure, if you need a plaster or something, need some help with. There's a whole lot of first aid kits scattered around the college, but I would say go to the porter's lodge, it's easy, because I think most of you know where that is. Okay, and also what's for free, see, I'm thinking again, international students, sorry for our UK students, but it's important that I get this message across, is that for your GP, you can have it for free, bloods for free, prescription is £9.30, and if you need dental care, I'll say just, at the moment, it's very, very difficult. Our students are really struggling to get a Cambridge dentist. So I would say, if you've got a dental issue and you think it can't wait, email me. If I'm not around, 111, because I can get in touch with dental urgency and they can triage. If there's any damages, facial and teeth and that, then it's 999 because you might have to see a maxillofacial surgeon, a specialist in Edinburgh, so don't phone the dentist. So I think anything you're worried about and is out of hours, 111, they will advise. I'd rather you reach out for help than sit in your room alone and worry about your health. And then, so dentist, NHS, you do pay a small amount. Private, you pay much more. And then you've got opticians. Some students have already been in touch with me about how do I get contact lenses, what about my glasses. So we've got a lot of opticians in town. Sometimes they give free eye care. And they also look at behind the eye and see the health of the eye. So it's always good to have, even if you don't have contact lenses or glasses, it's always good to have it checked because you're a lot on the screen. I mean, the last year I've had to have glasses. So just shows you. So, and then looking at self-care. If I'm not here and you think, oh, I've got this rash, but I'm feeling fine, pharmacists, they're very good. You can show them. And I work quite closely with the pharmacists in the city. So they're very good in helping. If I'm not around and you need I'm thinking of our female students who need contraceptive pills and I can't take your blood pressure or your weight at that specific time, you can go to Superdrug in town. They take your blood pressure because the GPs are usually asking now. Either go and see the college nurse to do some blood pressure checks or you can go to the pharmacy. I've just spoken to Superdrug on Thursday and they're still doing it. So I'm thinking of now serious allergies. I mean, a lot of you that I've been in touch and we've chatted and, we shared information with the people that need to know. If we haven't been in touch or you haven't let me know, please just reach out to me because that's so important. To let catering staff know importance. In case you have allergic reaction, we need to promptly get emergency care for you. So thinking about allergies, so alcohol and non-steroid anti-inflammatories, ibuprofen can increase the severity of your allergic reaction, so just think of that. Also, if you're having recreational drugs, we hope not, but, alcohol, it can decrease your ability to think, especially those that carry adrenaline pens, those that I'm talking again if I'm not aware of, just to let people know. And also, kissing. Allergens can sit in the saliva for 2 hours to 24 hours. So if you've got a peanut allergy or anything, and you meet someone, or or ask just in a relationship, just say, have you had any peanuts or nuts or whatever allergen you have, because it can sit in the saliva up to 24 hours. Also, if you're allergic to latex and milk, it can be found in many brands of condoms. So just to be aware, so you can find out there's a lot of non-latex condoms that you can reach out for. So yeah, I think that's it. So please, serious allergies, if you haven't come back to me, or some students are saying to me, I've had bad reaction to nuts, but I'm just avoiding it. I would say go and get seen to the GP, let the catering staff know, because the labeling can be I had a student 2 years ago, and he bought the same brand of chicken korma from one of the big, I think it was Sainsbury's, but decided to go to Marks and Spencer, I think, to get the same chicken korma. And because he was so busy and getting things ready, he didn't realize and he didn't check the label, and it had small writing cashew nuts. And he had a reaction. Luckily, he came to me, I gave him the adrenaline pen and got him to hospital. So it's really important that checking labels, asking the canteen staff if you're not sure, can you let me know about these labels, maybe from abroad and maybe not familiar with the ingredients in our food. Okay. So also thinking about, eating out in restaurants and that, just to let people know, and if you're not sure. And then thinking about your household, letting them know that you've got this severe allergy, because they might start thinking, what's wrong? Some people feel comfortable, and I've got some training adrenaline pens that some households say, oh, I want to help my housemate. If they do, can you show me how to use it? So I've got some training pens if you want to, find out more about it. But it's important to let your household know, also because of cross-contamination on boards, on surfaces. Also thinking of celiac, those with gluten intolerance. I have been supporting students that have in different toasters. You know, you don't be afraid to ask. All those kind of things we can help you with, so that there's no cross-contamination. There's also, I think, more than labeling. And then I'm thinking of your vaccines. You know, all your vaccines to be up to date. If you haven't had your vaccines up to date, like your meningitis, ACWY, you can get it from your GP surgery. I would say do it as soon as possible because you are in the high-risk group. You're coming from all over the world, you're mixing very close, and it sits in your nose and your throat and you won't know you have it. So please do get vaccinated on that. It's really important. Can you put your hands up who knows the symptoms of meningitis? One. Okay. So to know the symptoms of meningitis, it actually affects, it's the meninges around your brain and can affect. You get the viral, which is not too bad, but the bacterial, you can die in a couple of hours. I'm not trying to scare you, but this is cases that have happened before. That's why I say meningitis is so important. If you have a friend, a household, they're saying, I'm feeling unwell, I'm not really well, I'll let you know about the symptoms now, don't worry. And they're going to bed. They're alone in their room. Think about just keeping an eye on them. And I haven't seen them for a while. Let me go and check. I know we've had COVID, so the other, what they call twin pandemics, like measles, mumps and rubellas, the flus, that have all been, pressed down because of the COVID, and we've practiced masks and washing hands and social distancing. All this could start coming up again. So I'm just saying, please just be aware of these things. So, symptoms. Fever, cold, hands and feet. Don't worry if you forget, because I'm going to ask supporters to put all these little leaflets in your pigeonhole. Just to remember it, okay? Important. Drowsy, difficult to wake up. That's what I say, keep an eye on your friends. Severe muscle pain, severe headache, dislike bright lights, vomiting, confusion and irritable, pale blotchy skin, spots and rashes. You know the one that they say, use a glass and then press against the rash. Don't just think, I'm okay, I've just got a cold or flu. It's okay, I don't see that rash. It goes in all different kinds of ways, how it presents itself. Stiff neck, it's a good sign that be really worried. Convulsions and seizures. So I would say, you think, how would I know? And I don't want to create anxiety, yeah? But how would I know? If you've got colds and flus, and of course we think of COVID, you've got to know the signs and symptoms there. But if you can carry on with your day-to-day life, you can still do the things you can do, it suggests you're okay. But it's trying to put the safety netting when you're not okay and when to start seeking help. And because I only seen 2 or 3 knowing the signs and symptoms of meningitis, I really suggest to get familiar with that, please. And then, does anyone know the signs and symptoms of sepsis? Okay. So, usually a slurred speech or confusion, extreme shivering or muscle pain, passing no urine in a day, severe breathlessness, if it feels like you're going to die, or skin mottled or discolored. So sepsis can happen very quickly, they can become life-threatening. So please seek 999, don't even hesitate. All right. So COVID-19 vaccines, a lot of you have had your COVID vaccines. It was really good to see. For those that maybe haven't managed to get yet, they're doing a lot of walk-in clinics. So you can go in there. If you look at the university COVID website, they have all different places where you can have your walk-in for your COVID. If you want to book, you can book through NHS 119. So, you're all familiar with COVID symptoms. Put your hands up, please. That's good to see. Okay, but also, if you're thinking of temperature, continuous cough, and loss of smell and taste. Also think of the smaller symptoms, diarrhea and vomiting, sore throat, headaches, runny nose, all those, and the university have set up that you can be tested for those too, depending on capacity. But also I think Ryan has explained the asymptomatic testing, so that's also available. So the important thing to do is your measles, meningitis, your ACWY, if you haven't had it, please book an appointment. If you're worried about it for some reason, email me and we can have a discussion. So also with measles, mumps and rubella, before COVID happened, the lockdown, we saw in our college an increase of mumps because of the Wakefield scandal. I don't know if you know, a lot of parents were hesitant in the early 2000s to vaccinate their kids with the measles, mumps and rubella. What we see now is an increase of mumps, measles. And because we've had COVID and lockdown, it's been simmering. So we'll see how it goes there. So if you haven't had your measles or mumps vaccine, you need 2 doses, not just 1, 2 doses. So just making sure. Don't worry, if you're not sure, make an appointment with the GP. Public Health of England are saying, if you're not sure if you've had your vaccine, rather go and get it again. So just get familiar with the symptoms, because I know the time I could carry on with symptoms of measles, mumps and rubella, because I know it's been a long time in a lot of chats. Okay. And then thinking of the flu vaccine also, because the NHS is finding an increase of respiratory conditions. So thinking about, especially if you've got some chronic conditions like asthma and that, you can get the flu vaccine for free. If you put there, you're not sure in an international student, put flu vaccine, NHS, and it'll tell you who's eligible for a free flu vaccine on the NHS. I would suggest with flu, you know, a lot of students are bedridden, and it's not just feeling so poorly, it's also how it affects your academic work. It really does cause and creates anxiety because you're trying to catch up with it. There's a whole lot of things to look at. Just email me if you want to have discussion. I understand some people are allergic to the ingredients in the flu, so that might be an issue, but there is other ways we could support you. And so now looking at other services, when I said signpost, there's the counselling service. Now you don't have to have mental health conditions like depression, anxiety to use the counselling service. You can self-refer. You can self-refer to the college counsellor or the university counselling service, or both. Sometimes they say just self-refer to both. There's things like stress. Some students have imposter syndrome. I hear that a lot. You know, am I good enough to be here? It's normal feelings, you know. Perfectionism. You know, how to manage my anxiety. All this workload. How do I manage my anxiety? How do I cope with this? It's just too overwhelming. So the University Counselling Service have workshops, and I'll just read, because I haven't had time to say, they've got time well spent, understanding managing your anxiety, self-compassion, and so address your stress, perfectionism, they're just speaking about that because it's a big thing in Cambridge, imposter syndrome. So it's all those kind of things, and I've found the students that come and see us early, and early intervention, and kind of managing, the long term can feel a bit more settled. But it's like a roller coaster, and you'll have different pressure points that you'll feel, this is too much, I need to seek help. And the tutors are very good in supporting myself, the chaplain, you know, and if, you know, even with the porters, if you feel lonely, you need to talk to someone. There's also a lot of helplines. Look on my webpage, I won't bore you, you'll see all the helplines that there is too. And there's also, for eating disorders, there's a whole lot of, we've now, because we saw the need, we've linked up with a partnership with Personalised Eating Disorder Service. And it doesn't mean not only anorexia, but maybe binge eating, bulimia, especially when stress points, you know, when I'm eating too much or I'm not eating enough. You know, because your brain needs 500 calories it's a fuel to function and to manage your academic work here. So, you know, all these things can have an impact on you. So, you know, I'm letting you know that there is services, don't suffer on your own. And then thinking of the Disability Resource Centre, it's people that students that usually maybe have long-term medical conditions that has an impact on their work. So sometimes students will say to me, I've got dyspraxia, I've got dyslexia. In my A-levels, they allowed me to have extra time and rest breaks. It's here for you too. So please don't struggle on your own. Email me if you want to know more about it. I work closely with the advisors there, so we can support you there. I just want to say, students who have got ADHD and you're from abroad, I had a student the other day, only had a week's supply of ADHD medication. I would say, get to see your GP very quickly on ADHD medication, because it takes weeks. Because the GP cannot prescribe the ADHD medication. It has to go through to primary mental health care, and then they do assessment. If you've got a diagnosis, that could maybe be a bit easier. So it's just thinking about your medication, certain conditions. And yes, I think, and it's also thinking about, you know, alcohol and things that are coming in, you know, thinking about being safe. It's winter time. Alcohol can make you feel warm. You don't have a jacket on, it's getting freezing. You can get hypothermia. I've had students sitting on the bridge, very cold because they're not thinking properly. So these are things that really, be in groups when you go out. Look after your friends. You know, saying, let's go together back home, keeping safe. You know, if you're having someone, you're meeting up and you don't like the sounds of this person, go to the bartender. I think it's Angela, you say, but I'll double check. And then they know you have a that. And I think that's all. Any questions? You're all exhausted, yeah? All right. Thank you very much. Email me if you have any other questions.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So most of you can disappear in a second. It's 8:30, I believe. Someone's got a chat with the master tomorrow. Is that right, Kai? 8:45. And then into second court for a photo, so please don't be late. If you sat in on one of the chats of me droning on in Zoom, you are free to go.
Oh, what happened?
Well, okay, so a couple of weeks ago, I flipped over while playing hockey, and I think I tore one of the ligaments in here or something. I never went to the doctor about it.
Never went to the doctor.
It would take too long to get an appointment, because I was going to university. It would probably take too long to get an appointment before I ended up here. So I never looked at it. Well, tomorrow, it was fine until last night when I stepped in it wrong.
Where to turn to types of issues. So I'm Paul Dupre. I'm a biochemist. That's my main job. I have a lab in the biochemistry department, and I work on plant sugars, plant carbohydrates. So my love is how plants turn carbon dioxide into sugars, and we use them for so many different purposes, like timber and building construction, packaging materials, and also in our diet, dietary fiber, for example. So I'm also interested in gut health. So look forward to talking to you all about those biochemistry things at some point. But I also have another job, which is in Magdalen as postgraduate tutor and helping guide the postgraduate students through their time here and making sure you can have as good a time as you possibly can, I hope. I largely look after the PhD students, and there's a second postgraduate.
Hi, my name's Rowan Bernstein, or Dr. Bernstein. So I have a completely different world. I'm sort of a bit sciencey, I suppose, but that's about the extent of it. So I, in my normal life, I'm a consultant in anaesthetics and intensive care down at Addenbrooke's. I worked in COVID ITUs for the whole of the last 18 months. My main subspecialty is brain injury, so traumatic brain injury, so acute brain injury. I have quite a few roles. I have my research interest is increasingly more around medical education and postgraduate medical education with some intensive care research, mainly in a global health. At the moment, have been working a lot. So I predominantly look after the master's students with a small number of PhD students. Then I'm also the Director of Studies. So my supervision, my supervision system is a bit different to Paul's. So I tend to, if any of you have any known or think you're anticipating disabilities or health problems, other issues that are please make an appointment. There are reason and lots of moons off this side. Could you just tell Sarah and we'll make. Because I'm based down in Addenbrooks, it's not always easy to get up and here and see you, so very timely fashion either on. And what suits. I'm going to let Paul do the rest of the talk, but I know you're going to have to better than that.
Yes, thanks, Rowan. So welcome everyone, or welcome back. A few of you might already have studied in Cambridge, I think. Magdalen is a fantastic community. Some people think, well, why am I part of a college as well as the university? How does all of this work? So I'd like to just emphasize that Magdalen provides you with an additional support and academic environment distinct from your faculty and lab. Sometimes that's a great way of extending your experience, but also providing support if things are not going quite so smoothly in your faculty. So a few words about the college. So we are a charity that is distinct from the university. We're not owned by the university or the government. It's a charity governed by our master and the fellows, the governing body, who make the decisions about how the college is run, and our statutes tell us that we have to promote education, religion, learning and research. We do that in different ways, as you'll get to know. And we have income from all different sources, lots of different sources. Endowment, so over the centuries people have donated money, and that the income from that helps. So you'll see on the other side of the river, for example, there are lots of restaurants. Magdalen owns almost all of that block of Quayside and all the restaurants and offices there, and they pay us rent, so that's some of our income. We have donations from alumni and charities, for example, to build this wonderful court here in this auditorium, or very excitingly the new library working space which has just opened. We were the first board to be able to make full use of that, so that's very exciting. Come from conferences outside COVID, and student fees and charges, of course, which you're very familiar with, but that's only about a third of the income, so most of what you see comes from other sorts of. So our master, and we have a new president just starting, Brendan Virtual. President is the head fellow. You might think it's a strange name to have a president of the college as well as a master, but Magdalen has had a president for centuries, much longer than any country has had a president. I can tell you a story about a connection between Magdalen's president and we also have then the governing body made up of fellows of all different disciplines across different faculties, university, and together the governing body makes decisions about how the college is run. And across the Bursa, who's college, and I hope you won't come across the dean, who's involved in discipline in the college, although he will be giving you a short talk later after. So why have postgraduate tutors? Sometimes people think. I've listed a few points here about our role as tutors and how we can help you. So we try to make sure that the postgraduates in college have the best possible experience, and we do that by making sure the governing body graduates and encourage better facilities.